Good morning, happy Sabbath. Nice to see you all this morning. So I was preaching in Serbian a few minutes ago. So now I have to install a different program, and that program is not easy to use. And my processor is very old and slow. So I hope that we can do something about that. Okay, in this picture, you can see an attempt to depict one of the oldest and the most beautiful cities in history. And probably if I ask you which city is that, you will say, yes, you know what city is that. When we speak about Babylon, it is good to know that we need to know some background. I don't have time to speak everything about that city, but I would like just to say a few words. So Babylonians, they called their city Bavil or Bavilim. Some says Babilim. And translation of that is gate of God or gate of gods. So word Babylon is coming from the Greek language. So it was a Greek name for that city. So we call that city Babylon because of Greek word Babylon. But in the Bible, we have different word for that. So it is Babel. And we have a passage in Genesis which says that the city was called Babel because God, Balal, Hebrew word Balal, confused or mingled or mixed the languages of the earth. So in the Bible, word Babel has a different meaning, and meaning is confusion. So probably you know that Babylonians called their city Eternal City. So do you know which city has the same name today? Rome, which is very interesting. So today we have a Rome which is called Eternal City, like Babylon before. You can see here that Babylon is a museum today. So you can see here Ishtar Gate. So this gate was dedicated to goddess Ishtar. And you can see now that is restored today. And you can go to Babylon and visit that site. And that site is museum today. What is interesting is that Bible tells us that Babylon will not be restored again. And in history, we had two men who tried to restore Babylon. First one was Alexander the Great, or Saša. Yes, his name is Alexander, but his nickname is Saša. So every Alexander is Saša. Unfortunately, my mother gave me name just Saša. And many times I asked her, Mom, I would like to be Alexander. So you know that Alexander was 33 years old, and he tried to rebuild Babylon, and he tried to make Babylon his capital city, but he died. He was 33 years old. After that, we have another man who tried to do that, and his name was Saddam Hussein. And you know what happened to him. So here you can see what attempt to rebuild Babylon looks like. So Saddam Hussein did that. So you can see on these few slides. that he tried to rebuild Babylon again, but he didn't. Okay, in this slide you can see reconstruction of the Ishtar Gate from the Berlin Museum in Germany. And of course, lion is a symbol of Babylon. So it is no wonder that there were 120 lions in the procession street, and Germans took all that lions and bring them to Germany. Okay, here you can see how Babylonians were great artists and skilled builders. And on this slide, you know that Daniel chapter 7 talks about different creatures, different animals. And fourth one was completely different. And he didn't say what kind of animal it was, but we know that it was some kind of mix of different animals. So on this slide, you can see one animal which is hybrid, which contains part of different animals. So name of this animal is Mushhushu. And that animal was in connection with Babylonian god Marduk. So Babylon was a center of worship. In Babylon, we had 16 temples, 43 sanctuaries, and 900 small churches. Main street in Babylon was named Who is Like Marduk. And you remember then in Daniel chapter 12, we have another name, which is named Michael. And translation of the name Michael is Who is Like God. So Daniel was walking in the street, which was named Who is Like Marduk, and then in chapter 12, he had a revelation about someone who is like God. Very interesting. So usually when we think about book of Daniel, usually we read chapter 2, chapter 7, chapter 9, but you know when you start to read the book, you need to start from beginning. So this morning I will speak about chapter 1. So historian background of this chapter is that year 605 BC, Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judea and takes part of the people to Babylon. So in verse 1, chapter 1, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And Lord gave. I would like if you can remember these words. It's very important in chapter 1. And the Lord gave. What the Lord gave? He gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah. I'm sorry, I'm reading just, I'm not pronouncing like in English. I'm just pronouncing what is written, and this is his Hebrew name. Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the articles into treasure house of his God. So, very important sentence in chapter 1 is God gave. So Nebuchadnezzar not only took people, he took parts from the temple and put them in the temple of his God. In that time, when one nation conquered another nation, that meant that God of that nation is stronger than God of another nation. In this situation, God Marduk is more powerful than God of Israel. It was people believed that in that time. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and science of the Babylonians. So Nabucodonosor also took some young people from the royal family, and the goal of this was they could learn the language and the science of Chaldeans. What does that mean? You have young people who are from another nation and they are in another country, and their education and training has to begin. They need to learn the language, science, and religion of Babylon. And you know that their names were in connection with their God. So I'm not going to read that and repeat, you probably know that. So all 4 young men, they had a name which is in connection with their God. But after that, their names were changed. And their names now are in connection with Babylonian gods. So you can see that it is not just basic training, you know. You are not just going to learn something new. Today, we can say that it was some kind of brainwashing training. They had to forget their parents, their country, their culture, their religion. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of king's delicacies and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king. It's interesting that today, for example, in Australia, if you want to study most of the bachelor degrees, how many years? 3 years. Maybe some of this food was temptation for Daniel and his friends. This young man had to eat the food that the king ate, and it was for 3 years. After that, they had to stay before the king. The food which was for the king was not ordinary food. Maybe the part of this was on the table. I don't know how you and I would react in that situation. And now, in one moment, we have a big change, turning around. One young man said no. He said no to the most powerful man at that time. He decided not to eat king's offering. When we think about this, we can ask how brave that young man was. He was a slave and he didn't not have right, but he said no to the king. What is the problem with eating? Maybe we can ask. Why should I not eat food that is the best food in all kingdom? The king himself eats that food. After all, who am I not to eat the food that the king gives me? Well, I am just a slave. When I'm thinking about that, it always reminds me of my days in the army. So if you can recognize one of these three men, it's Pastor Saša, of course, with the glasses. Yeah. And I can feel that hair, it's still can feel that. There was a young man with me. In that time, we were 18 years old. And that young man was Seventh-day Adventist. It is young man in the middle. His name is Daniel, accidentally. I was not believer in that time. I didn't know anything about Bible. I didn't know anything about God. But that young man faced problem since the most of the meals were with the pork. He skipped many meals. I told him, "You are going to die if you are not eating. We need physical strength to work." But he didn't. He refused to eat. At that time, I wondered how anyone could oppose anything in the army. You could end up in the jail. You have to endure ridicule and all kinds of bullying. It should last 1 year. It was not easy. Interestingly, he went home after that year with 10 kilograms more than he came in the army. And we can only say it was a miracle. So, when Daniel said no, that was the first time in that difficult situation that God intervened. If you remember, first time, and God gave. And from then, looks like that everything going down. And now, first time in the chapter 1, we have God's reaction. Why? Because one young 17 years old man decided not to eat. Can you imagine that? We can't see that God did anything for Jewish people in that time. Only when Daniel said no, then God's intervention started. So now, we have a second time, and God gave, which is interesting that word which is used is Natan, meaning is to give. So God gave. And at the end of 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all young men who eat the portion of the king's delicacies. Do you know what Daniel asked to eat? Sorry? Yeah, I tried to read different English translations. And it is very interesting that in King James Version, you have word. Do you know which word is used? Sorry? No. Word which is used is in today English is used for completely different things. But I try to find what is the meaning in Old English. So, and then I found only in Bible English you can find that word, meaning of that word. And meaning is seeds. If you check a Hebrew Bible, you will see that words is zera, and meaning of that word is seeds. So Daniel didn't eat vegetables, which we can think about, carrots, what else? Tomatoes. No, he asked to eat seeds. Okay? And now we have third time, same words, and God gave. As for these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Why? What is the reason? God gave him. When God gave him that? When he decided not to eat. Do you follow me? So, what is first? God gave or Daniel decided? Now we are coming to one very important thing. Do we have any role in our religion, let's say it like that? Or we are just passive, we are sitting down, watching, and said, Lord, help me. If we think about Daniel, our conclusion has to be, he did first step. He decided not to eat. It was big decision in that time. And he was 17 years old. If you have someone who is 17 years old today here, what you are going to think about that man? Is he mature? Are you going to appoint him as a church elder? Probably not. But Daniel was 17 years old, and he said no to most powerful men in that time. And after that, God gave him all that abilities. Okay. So, when we summarize this situation in chapter 1, we can see a gradual decline of the situation. First, we can see a fall of Jerusalem. So after that, we can see that people are taken in captivity. After that, young men who need to be re-educated. Their names were changed. They had to eat king's food. Everything is going down, down and down. Until what? Until one young man, 17 years old young man, says no. And after that, everything is going up. And Lord gave them, and Lord gave them, and situation is starting to be better and better for them. What was king's strategy? To eat Babylonian food and drink Babylonian wine, to change their names, to educate them in the Babylonian school. What is a goal? To forget their God, their faith, and their past. It was king's strategy. What was a slave strategy? We don't want to eat Babylonian food. We don't want to accept changing of the names. So when you read the book of Daniel to last chapter, you can see that Daniel named himself in whole book I, Daniel. He didn't accept to be called by Babylonian God name. What was we understand who was behind all that situation. So Satan tried to do something with that young people. So he tried to convert them. If you eat royal food, you will be stronger, smarter, and more beautiful than other people. Do you understand that? If you forget your God and faith of your parents, you will get a better position in society. Has something changed today? What is Satan offering to young people today? Go to school, finish university, mix with other people, accept their culture, their way of thinking, forget faith of your parents, don't go to church, this is for old people. Is Babylon offering today his food? And that food is completely different than food which we have described in the Bible. Is that true? Do we have drink offerings today? So, Satan method was education, culture, acceptance of language, behavior, customs, nutrition, and in third chapter of a book of Daniel, we have music. Final goal, conversion. Is anything changed from Daniel's time? Today we have same situation, same temptation for young people. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself. He was 17 years old and challenged the most powerful man of that time. So you can see in this slide what was remain of old, big, beautiful Babylon. So in few slides you can see that. But this is the street, and name of that street was Who is Like Marduk. So, conclusion. Bible says that Babylon is going to rise again, one final time, but it will fall again. Babylon is coming to his end, but still Babylon offers education, religion, food, music, culture. But Bible tells us that it will fall again. What we are going to do? Would we accept the offer of Babylon? Or would we say no like Daniel? God bless you to make right choice. Amen.